This that no nonsense. Well, guys, this was coming. Obviously, this should come as a compliment. If you don't receive hate, that means you ain't doing anything, right? The greats receive hate. So now the question is Luka more important to his team than Kawhi Leonard? I will say this. This question favors Luka more because Luka is an elevator. Luka is able to elevate the team, right? Offensively, the way he's able to play make, the way he's able to digress his game and let his team shine and make his teammates better in the transcendent level currently, right? Kawhi Leonard is a superstar that can one-on-one, right, outplay other superstars in the league, just about any superstar in the league. But Kawhi Leonard is the type that has to have a team around him, right? And this is not to take anything away from Kawhi. Kawhi's formula is more conducive to championships, right? I haven't really seen Kawhi take a bad team and elevate it, right? However, I don't think Kawhi is conditioned to do that. But Kawhi knows this, right? This style of play is more conducive to championships. You look at Michael Jordan, right? When Phil Jackson and that offense took over with the triangle, he became more of a Kawhi type player. Score and defend with a great team around him. Well, a great enough team around him, right? However, elevators tend to break down. A lot of Skip Bayless would tell you that Luka is not clutch. Obviously, I've seen Luka hit clutch shots, but I've also seen Luka break down. A lot of it is because a lot of elevators tend to break down. They do too much, right? And LeBron is able to be more sustainable with it because LeBron has a transcendent body, right? So obviously you could be a lot more physical with Luka. You know, the free throws that, Luka has currently is becoming a red flag. We're going to see, can he improve that? But I won't say he's not clutch. That has yet to be determined. Obviously, I got to see, which is my determining factor for Luka, is if he able to do this in the playoffs, right? And my thing with Luka and all these young kids is, be physical with him, right? But when you're an elevator and you have to do a lot for your team, you tend to break down, right? So the success of Dallas would be predicated on if the others can step up. Obviously, if Kristaps can become more New York Kristaps, and if they can play some defense, right? So the reason this question favors Luka more is because Luka does more. So in my opinion, when you look at the word important, you're going to look at if you take both of those guys off the team, who's going to perform worse, right? And when you look at the Clippers, obviously they made the playoffs without both Paul George and Kawhi. And if you have that same team and just have Paul George, they will make the playoffs. They'll probably be like the Utah Jazz skill level. With the right matchup, they might go to the second round. But obviously with Kawhi, they're a championship team. So Max is going to make the argument that, two arguments. He's going to say that going from a first round to a championship is harder than going from a non-playoff to the playoffs. And he's also going to say important is where you going, saying that, yeah, Luka takes you to the playoffs, but Kawhi takes you to the championship. But like I said, Max, the reason this question favors Luka more because that is determining on the team aspect. Kawhi's team is better, right? So these type of questions favor elevators more. So let's see what they have to say about it.
Kawhi Leonard is more important to his team. Everyone's going to get...
Of course you're going to say that because you're a Kawhi Leonard bandwagon. You're a bandwagon in general.
It's wrong. As a matter of fact, Stephen A., I'd like you to start because my argument, I think, is going to anticipate yours.
And here's another thing, not to pause the video too much. This is not a question to see who's better. Obviously, personally, I think Kawhi Leonard is better simply because Kawhi Leonard obviously has the resume, but Kawhi Leonard plays both sides of the court. And I think Kawhi Leonard currently is going to be more of a killer. Luka Donic has to prove that to me in the playoffs. If he proves that to me in a fashion of which is greater than Kawhi, then I give the crown to him in terms of who's better between the two. But as of right now, I think Kawhi Leonard is better. As far as MVP, Luka is more of an MVP. obviously Kawhi sacrificed that to chase championships.
Like to hear yours first.
Well, I'll go first one this time. Listen, I think it's Luka, and I definitely think it's Luka because when I look at the Clippers, I see a team without Kawhi Leonard.
Exactly. That's how you see important.
Maybe not a championship team, maybe not a team that could win the whole thing, but I see a team that can get to the playoffs. How do I know that? Because they just did. Without Kawhi and Paul George. Remember, Max, you don't get to sit up there and omit Paul George from this equation because the question is about Kawhi Leonard.
Sure.
If they don't have Kawhi Leonard, but they have Paul George, and they still have Lou and Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverly and the crew. Excuse me, I like them. I like the Clippers to be a middle-of-the-road Western Conference playoff team with Paul George, but without Kawhi Leonard. With Kawhi Leonard, they're obviously a top two, top three title contender. What the hell is the Dallas Mavericks without Luka Donic? What are they? I'm sorry, I got news for you. 29, 9, and 8.
Well, to be fair, that's also without Porzingis too. So maybe they win a couple more. I think they win 10 more games, right? It'd probably be 39 wins. Porzingis is a great player. Well, if it's the Porzingis of this season, maybe they win about 7 more games, right? Simply because they're not playing enough defense. Porzingis got to get his legs under him. And Porzingis not the elevator, transcendent elevator that Luka is. However, Porzingis is important because he allows them to play 5 out. If you don't have a center that can defend the three-point line, then you're pretty much most likely not going to beat the Dallas Mavericks. Or at least have an extremely hard time against them. They're going to force you to play small ball, and Kristaps is going to have the size advantage.
36% shooting. He's your point guard. It's not just about his
Point
numbers.
forward, maybe.
Or whatever. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's the point guard. That's what Rick Carlisle tells me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I woke up. I became a brighter coach, Stephen A. The day that I decided last February
Here, take
to
this.
be exact. Take the
Take
damn
the
ball
ball.
on the top. That's what Rick
Luka's
Carlisle
no joke.
told me. Okay. I gave him the ball. So we're not talking about a guy that's just averaging numbers. We're talking about everybody else's numbers
I know, right?
are dictated by him.
See,
Thank you, Stephen A, because he's an elevator. These questions going to impact an elevator more. Not to say that Kawhi Leonard is being carried by his team, but Kawhi Leonard knows the type of player he is. Kawhi Leonard's not an elevator to the degree of a Luka Donic. Kawhi is not going to go to a bad team and carry it, right? He's confident in himself, right? A lot of guys or a lot of fans believe in this crap called, carrying a team to a championship. I don't believe that's possible. You got to have a team. Obviously, you got to at least to quote unquote carry, you at least got to have a top 5 to top 10 offense or a top 5 to top 10 defense. When you look at James Harden teams, they had at least a top 5 offense. When you look at that Russell Westbrook team that had nobody but Oladipo, they had a top 5 defense. If you have a bottom half offense and defense, you ain't carrying nothing. I don't care how many points you average. Just being real with you. That's how you quote-unquote carry. You got to at least have a top 5 offense or a top 5 defense, one of them. And obviously, if you have both, you're a title contender. That's how it works. Not saying that. A lot of fans going to try to say that, You hear the LeBrons and a lot of other superstars, they're going to want to put up their numbers and still want to win, right? Kawhi knows, one-on-one, I can outplay you and any other superstar. I just got to have my guys behind me, right? This is why the question is not going to favor him. But however, Kawhi's style is more conducive to championships. Luka Donic is an elevator, right? So if he gets a sufficient amount of help and they able to play both sides of the court when it counts, at least, especially in the playoffs, then he is able to win. If not, then they're going to be physical with him. He's going to have great performances, right? He's going to have great numbers, but elevators tend to have great numbers, but they also break down. So we shall see with Luka Donic.
Now, Dallas without Luka Donic is a lottery team.
Yep.
With him, they are a playoff team. Without Kawhi Leonard, the Los Angeles Clippers are a playoff team, not a title contender. Without Luka, they're not even a playoff team.
See, I knew that's the argument. Right. And that's why everyone gets this wrong. First of all, let's look what happened last night.
Sure.
Because it came down to 2 players really going back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah.
And Luka's clutch.
Right.
Luka's just clutch. But you just knew Kawhi was going to hit the shot that wins the game. Kawhi.
We didn't know that. It was nice to see that, though. See, that's your hyperbole, right? They gotta bring in hyperbole to arguments every time when they debate.
I was not going to lose. His will to win is just different. That's one. Two, and they're both fantastic players. Kawhi's a much better defensive player.
Yes.
He's an all-time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Kawhi is a great defensive player. His defense been a bit overrated this year, but obviously his defense is going to turn up in the playoffs. Right? He's saving his energy. What Clippers need to do is build continuity, because if they don't have chemistry, they are not going to win.
Great defensively. Okay, that's two.
And he probably going to be back on LeBron's jock if LeBron wins the championship.
Three, the very argument, and this is really the crux of the argument, the very argument you're making. Well, the Clippers make the playoffs anyway, probably, with Paul George, and what would Dallas be without Luka? In fact, the difference between being a non-playoff team to a playoff team is one thing, but it's a whole other thing to go from like a first-round exit-style playoff team to a champion. And that is really the premium that you're talking about with Kawhi. That's his importance. He takes you...
That's a great point, Max. Like I said, Max is going to try to dissect it and try to switch it up. But that also depends on how better the team is, Max. Clippers is just a better team. If you put them both in similar situations, how would the team fare? And yes, low management does count, because that's a part of who Kawhi is.
From a team that's fighting in the first round, maybe to advance, maybe not, to a team that is going to win the championship, or at the very least, be one of the 2 or 3 teams to really compete for it. That difference, that extra effort it takes, the marginal utility, so to speak, to get to that level makes Kawhi more important.
Well, the reason why I disagree with you is because he was going against Kawhi. So when you sit up there and you point out the excellence of Kawhi combined with the will to win, etc., well, what you didn't see from Luka may have been because it was against Kawhi. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say to you again is, now we're talking about our priorities. I'm telling you that what you're pointing to may be the difference between a title contender and a champion. I'm telling you, with Luka in Dallas, with or without him, is the difference between relevance and complete irrelevant. There's a difference to me.
You can see that Molly agrees with Stephen A, right? Obviously, Max is trying to, keep his boyfriend Kawhi balls in his mouth at all times. Now, obviously, this is not one of those things where I'm not a Luka fanboy, and I will constantly iterate this. I don't encourage anyone to be Luka fanboys. The reason why I say that is I'm not going to act like Luka's team is trash. Luka's team is great offensively, right? Even before they drafted Luka, it was bad, but they had games where they competed, right? They got a great management. They got a smart management, right? They got a great owner, right? They are great offensively, and Luka is able to transcend that offense beyond. But that's it. That's it. It's none compared to the team Clippers have. Clippers have more ball handlers. Clippers have better defenders, right? I think Clippers have better closers. Clippers have more physical players. I think when you look at a one-style offense, when you look at Luka's team in terms of he's able to transcend offensively, right? And this is why I think that Dallas won't be able to beat the Clippers. That's if the Clippers' chemistry isn't in order. But I think once their chemistry get in order, I think Clippers will be able to be extremely physical with Dallas and force them to play defense, because they won't be able to stop the Clippers. And if Luka wears down, then that offense isn't going to be as great as it can be, as you see in the first half of that game. But obviously, when the offense is going, then it can compete with anyone. But obviously, like I said, time will tell.
I understand that. That's why I'm saying what you are saying, I think, is the intuitive point of view that most people have. What I am saying about this is that's fine if the goal is to lose in the first round. Kawhi gets you a championship. Yeah. Here, watch this. Put Kawhi on a team, put Luka on a team, right? Whatever else you have, you're probably going to make the playoffs. Is Luka going to bring you a title right now?
But it depends on the team, Max. Right? You see, he's trying to argue who the better player and ignore that Clippers have a better team. Right? See, when you're doing a Kawhi style, like I said, an elevator that does a lot more, they're going to seem as more important. But when you're a Kawhi type style where you got to have a ready-made team and you can just go there. You like, hey man, I'm your missing piece, and I can outplay every superstar in the league. All y'all need is me. That's the type of player Kawhi is. He's not that guy to do extremely everything on the offense. When you look at his San Antonio, they was a ready-made team with a great coach. When you look at Toronto Raptors, they was a ready-made team with a historical defense in the playoffs. You even see how they perform now with the great coach in Nick Nurse, by the way. So he's that player that has to have a ready-made team, so he could just come there and do his thing. He'll outperform your superstar, and they possibly can win the championship. So the questions like these is going to seem more favorable to a guy like Luka, who does a lot more, right? Keep in mind, this is not a question on who is better, because obviously you got to factor in both sides of the court. This is a question of who's more important to their team, right? The Clippers team is not built on Kawhi make or break. They're built on, obviously, they great in terms of grit and grind, and Kawhi is that superstar that's going to take us over the hump. Luka is a great elevator, and the way they build in their team, it seemed more like Luka make and break plus the shooting. If they're not having a great shooting night or a great offensive night, then Dallas is going to struggle. If Kawhi is not having a great game, he can throw the ball to Paul George or Lou. So this is why this question is more favorable to Luka Doncic.
Here's the part that's starting to make me uncomfortable about comments about Kawhi Leonard. I believe that Kawhi Leonard is a superstar. I believe that Kawhi Leonard is one of the top 5 players in the game. I think he's a man of good character. And by the way, that load management stuff, that ain't really applicable to him because those are real injuries that he is dealing with. All right, he's not healthy,
and he's not telling everyone about all of them either.
Everybody, we understand that. But here's what.
You see what Stephen A just did? Stephen A did 2 things. He trying to build up that connection with Kawhi Leonard, and also he got a piece of those Kawhi Leonard fanboys that might get offended of him choosing Luka Doncic, right? Keep in mind, Stephen A is sensitive, and he probably do read his Twitter comments or, Instagram comments or even, YouTube comments, right? Stephen A is a guy who appears that don't have a lot of time, that probably has a bit of time. So he has to do that to show the Kawhi fanboys that, hey, this is not to hurt them, right? And usually I hear a lot of guys, when I criticize a lot of guys, they come on my channel thinking that I think they're completely garbage, right? Or I just hate them. No, it's not that. I'm just answering the question in detail of what it is, right? This is more important. This is not who's better. This is not who has the better career. A lot of guys would try to throw into who the better career, and like I said, that comes down to being a fanboy, because when you're subjective, you start jumping to conclusions like an insecure wife or girlfriend, right? That's because you're too emotional. So when you're, like I said, emotions process faster than logic. So you got to stay objective as possible. So I'm not saying Kawhi Leonard is not better than Luka Doncic, right? And if I believe that, then that'd just be my opinion. But I think Kawhi is better currently. But Luka is more important to his team, obviously. And Stephen A is going to try to build that connection, and obviously going to try to not go into war with the fanboys of NBA players.
But I think you're missing. Kawhi, first title, defense.
Yep.
But he was with this a well-oiled machine that was the San Antonio Spurs. Second title, you didn't go against the monsters. They were in an infirmary, for crying out loud, in Golden State last year. All right, I don't want to hear about Philly and their inexperienced selves. I don't want to hear it.
And the fact that Kawhi traveled before hitting that shot, good shot. He traveled though.
I don't want to hear. Who told you about Milwaukee? Who told you about Milwaukee?
Well, they ran into Kawhi.
See, that's how I know Max is a fanboy. Like I said before, when you're a fanboy, you think that your team is about you and you're the reason why they win, and everybody else are tools to make that team seem good, right? This fanboyism, because the liberal media and the sports media teaches you how to be an idolater. They teach you how to worship someone. And to worship someone, that person has to seem like they can do anything and they have no weaknesses. They didn't just run into Kawhi. They run into historic defense and the great coach. That's what they ran into. right? Mike Budenholzer didn't want to establish Giannis in the post. He still had him dribble down. Kawhi was guarding the front of the perimeter. They built a wall, and Middleton and Bledsoe disappeared. That's the extreme details of it. But keep in mind, they had a historic defense, right? I seen him got past Kawhi plenty of times on those possessions. And Kawhi had some great defensive stops. But he got past Kawhi on some of those possessions, and he ran into a wall. And Greek was trying to finish over the wall. And that second guy from the Milwaukee didn't step up. Like I said, Kawhi is not that type of player where you say, man, that's all him. No, it's not that. Kawhi, you can say Kawhi outplayed your superstar. That's the type of player he is. But he's going to have a great team around him. Because Kawhi knows that he's not going to use his body energy, right? And I say energy, his life force, and I would say life force, to try to carry a bad team. Quote unquote carry a bad team. Or so-called carry a bad team. He's going to go to a ready-made team, right? Where they just need a superstar, and he's going to outperform that superstar, and those others going to have to do their job, which they do, for them to win the championship.
Wait a minute now. I told you about Milwaukee. I said that Greek Freak, his perimeter game is going to be a question mark, and I told you those big boys up there, whether they're going to show up or not.
Are you saying because was there any team that was going to beat the Golden State Warriors at full health last year?
No one.
Okay, so why are you holding that against Kawhi?
But personally, for me, keep in mind, a lot of people going to say Golden State escaped from the skin of their teeth in Game 2. That's because Klay went down. When Klay went down, they was blowing them out. They boxed it one Steph, and no one can hit a open three consistently. So if Klay would have never got hurt his hamstring, I believe Golden State would have beat them. Now, if that everything transpired, and if Klay never went down in Game 6, then it would have been 7 games, and who knows, right? I personally think a healthy Steph Klay would have beat that Toronto Raptors team. That's what I personally believe. But maybe Toronto still wins. Right? But this is not to take anything away from Kawhi. Right? They're going to try to make it seem like as history go on, Max Kellerman going to make it seem like Kawhi had all good 6 games. To be honest with you, out of all those games, Kawhi won them 1 game. And that was Game 4. Right? Siakam won them Game 1. They barely escaped from the skin of their teeth in Game 2. They had multiple guys scoring 20 points in Game 3. Kawhi won them Game 4. Kawhi had a good stretch in Game 5. Right? They called that timeout. And then, obviously Kawhi then carry on that good stretch. And Fred VanVleet saved them in the 4th quarter in Game 6. Right? And it's, like I said, it's not taking anything away from Kawhi. It's just adding detail, right? Because I'm about that no nonsense. Complete detail to that whole series.
What I'm saying is when you're a champion, those things come into consideration. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to say to you is this. Luka might very well be the dude that you're describing against somebody other than Kawhi.
Yeah, there's
if you come
only one
NBA
all-NBA performer on the Mavs. Obviously, we know there's 2 on the Clippers. The Clippers have the chance, Max, to make history, to have 4 players averaging 19 points. That's the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, sure.
He's on a way better team.
But again, everyone misconstrues this argument. You're penalizing him for his teammates. Here's the bottom line. Do we believe...
Because the type of question this is, Max. Right? It ain't like they both got the same team. One team is worse than the other, right? And they both got near identical records.
If you have Kawhi as the focal point of your team, whoever else you have, you're probably going to make the playoffs. And I would say the same thing with Luka. They're both tremendous this way. Now, put each on a team with other all-stars. Which team is more likely to win?
No, now he's trying to imply that Kawhi is going to elevate to the degree of Luka. I disagree. I don't think Kawhi is conditioned to do that. And Kawhi knows that. Right?
In the whole thing. The team with the all-world 2-time finals MVP, who's one of the greatest defenders ever and an elite offensive player, right. Or the 20-year-old...
But now you're arguing who's the better player, right? Well, that's it. Obviously, the answer to this question is Luka, in my opinion. If you like this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. This, that, no nonsense.